A few years ago, I was very happy to receive one day, and there's an unboxing video of my surprise and joy. I was very happy to receive this book in the mail, Raiders of Relia. This is the Gothic Black and White edition, meaning it's the stripped down version of the rules, which is more than enough for you to play the whole game with. Whether you're the game master or the player, you're all set. Now, this was not all there was to this Kickstarter, and eventually we received the opportunity to get Raiders of Relia, the Game Master's Guide and Complete Rules, which can make you feel like this is incomplete, but it's only incomplete insofar as the extra stuff, the hundreds of pages of extra stuff in here, are guidelines, rules, support material for game masters preparing a campaign. So if you're an experienced Call of Cthulhu game master, this might be enough. But as it always seems to go in the RPG realm, it's just nice to have everything. That sense of completeness is empowering, in a sense. So it's great. It's amazing that this exists. Now, me personally, I have run the sorts of campaigns that this giant version was set up to, help you learn how to do and help you do more quickly and more efficiently, because everything is there for you. Everything's organized in a nice steady flow, and it's set up just so that you can move from thing to thing to thing to thing, and it's almost like having a friend there that you can bounce ideas off of. Have I done this before? It seems kind of familiar. What could I do differently? How could I describe things differently? Or where could I set it that I haven't said it before? That kind of thing. It's just, it really makes your preparation better. This is all I need. This is more fun. So there you go. Now, into this story comes a message from the creator, Quentin Bauer, who said, I've been working on an expansion, something that I wanted to do earlier, that kind of thing, and it's called Raiders of Relia from the Tideless Sea. We'll see if I have the ability to lift it, which is even bigger. It's massive, right? From the Tideless Sea, it's gigantic. And it's, as it describes itself on the cover, an epic Sandbox campaign. But it's not just that. This giant thing is not just a campaign, although it very much contains one. But it sets you up for that most iconic of, at least in my mind, that most iconic of campaign setups for a Call of Cthulhu or Cthulhu Mythos style game, that of, slowly making your way around a world that your culture is just starting to uncover and make sense of. So in the context of the era of this game, which is set in and around 1910, we're talking about tramp steamers, and we're talking about steam travel, and we're talking about not quite yet to World War I, but maybe we can see it looming on the horizon and that sort of stuff. It's pretty fascinating period of time, and refreshingly different if you have spent a lot of your time using the classic frameworks provided by a lot of the setting material for Call of Cthulhu, namely 1890, 1920, that kind of stuff. Recently, just a couple of months ago, really, a message came from the author of the original Kickstarter, Quentin Bauer, and he said, I've got something new in mind. And the book is already written, right? And if you were an original backer of that first Kickstarter, you will receive the manuscript for free as soon as the Kickstarter's done. No obligation. Which I thought was a really nice gesture. You know, it does fantastic work. The products, you know, are really cool. I think the only thing that would make them better would be if it had been possible, you know, somehow, which is a huge ask, you know, of a new RPG author navigating Kickstarter. It would have been nice if he had been able to get the attention that would bring the support that would enable, you know, traditional offset printing. I would love to see these books done that way. You know, these large books are often large like this simply because of the print-on-demand process, right? They're smaller, denser when they can be done in a traditional publication method. But that's really been my only kind of pipe dream about this. So it's done. You can have the manuscript when it's finished, you know, and the print codes are going to go out basically as soon as as everything is wrapped up after the Kickstarter. So, you know, please back it if you can. Don't worry about backing it if not. So I thought that was great. You know, that's a sign of quality and trust. So I was very happy to back it, even though, like I said before, this is exactly the sort of campaign that I've done on my own. I've done this research. I've found charts. I've found blueprints of tramp steamers and that sort of stuff. The thing is, though, all of this is so much better than my own research has been. And it's organized better. And it's all together in print and PDF, indexed to make it easy for me to find. So when I inevitably am pulled back into doing this campaign style again, I'm going to be able to easily build my own tramp steamers. I'm going to be able to easily determine crew sizes and who really should be in the crew, and you know, how much they should be getting paid and that kind of stuff. I'll know more about various ports of call and various periods, and you know, all of the other incredible support material that's in here for that kind of less than reputable or fully reputable crew traveling around through strange ports, hauling strange cargoes, meeting strange individuals in strange places, and just trying to get by. You know, whether you do it lightheartedly, such as a 1910s version of Firefly, or whether you do it as a slow descent into darkness, despair, and madness, there is a tremendous amount of stuff in here for you to draw from. So let's take a look inside. We've already seen the dramatic unboxing. So let's take a look inside the PDF, and because it's easier to look at, and talk about it briefly, and then end the video so we don't use too much of your day. You know, we're not going to talk about all the multiple hundreds of pages. All right, very quickly, the Raiders of Relia Gothic Black and White Edition, the rules-only version, is 259 pages. The larger Game Master's version is 489 pages. So we have the 59 pages of rules from the Gothic Black and White Edition, and then an additional 200 and some pages for Game Master support. Well, from the Tideless Sea is 564 pages of support. Now, it's described as being the year 1900, right? So it's a little earlier. And it's an age of imperial intrigues, daring missions, and creeping dread. And this whole supplement is based around being the crew of sailing ships, steamships, and the like. All right, so let's keep going through here. Created by Quentin Bauer. The Player's Guide portion has steamship creation, character creation, game mechanics. The Game Master's Guide and Sandbox Tools section has
campaign creation, port creation, then mission creation. It continues into a section called Cthulhu, and then into the World Sourcebook, which goes on for quite a large number of pages. Then we get into what's called the back matter, which is things like character sheets and the bibliography and charts and ship sheets, etc. So to talk about that in a little more detail, in the steamship creation section, you can literally make your steamship with its attributes, the other boats it might be carrying, its reputation, whether it's armed or not, the type of crew, investing in it, upgrading in it, different passengers, and the like. Then we get into character creation, which has different backgrounds, especially to focus on this type of seafaring type of character and skills that might go along with that, such, like navigation and carpentry and that kind of stuff. The game mechanics section, which starts on page 54, talks about communication at sea and sight at sea, repairing the ship from a variety of different sources of damage, such as storms and ice and that kind of stuff. Talk about diving, dredging, freezing in the water, naval combat, using different types of forces, which they're describing as scaled and non-scaled forces, doing security and watches and that kind of stuff. The rules section. Then we get into voyages, ship brokers, different factions, cargoes, navigating different events that can happen while you're navigating, the wear and tear on the ship and paying for its upkeep, that kind of stuff. Time zones even, calculating ticket costs, useful stuff. All right. When we get into the Game Master's Guide part, which starts on page 94, we have campaign creation, which goes into a whole bunch of stuff that you might need to set up a campaign, such as leaders of different factions in different places and different types of leaders. Whether, are they a merchant prince or are they a spy master or a warlord or something like that? Then what do the factions do? What actions do they take? And what about how much threat do they pose to a region or to your crew and that sort of stuff? We get into different types of ships, and there's a lot of stuff here. It's a very rich section. Then we get into, as I talked about earlier, port creations. Works the same sort of way. So what is the scale of the port? What is the type of port? What are other destinations around it? The geography and navigation hazards and crime and shipping companies that we might find there, right? And in section 7, which starts on page 247, we get into mission creation. So inside the overall framework of the campaign, different dangers, different objectives, getting paid, what kind of scope can be connected to your pay, like what are we expected to do for that much money. And then we get into identifying, I guess a real problem area for many people is, what is a clue and how can I, be creating something with a story in mind, with solving an investigation in mind, or moving from one situation to the next situation in a coherent pattern. How can I do that? How can I structure the mission? Then it gives an example. Then we get into Unit 8, Cthulhu. A whole lot of stuff about here. Exactly what you would want. Magic, unreliable testimonies, which is a feature of this particular game line. Raiders of really different artifacts and a variety of things that you might, want to place in your campaign in different regions. Then we have the very detailed but lean and mean sourcebook, which starts on page 292, which has all kinds of different places in it, and I don't really want to spoil them. But we have a large section, and then we have subsections within it. So let's take a look at just one of those places. Let's go to Port Stanley, which we'll find on page 456. All right. So this starts at the top of the page, and we have a description of Port Stanley. It's a coastal colony owned by Great Britain. Tells you where you can find it on the chart. Gives you what scale it is according to the scale rules given in this game. Tells you what its political nature is. Gives you a almost a quarter-page description. Then talks about navigation hazards around Port Stanley. Talks about the Port Authority. Gives you imports and exports. Tells you about the shipyards. Tells you about important landmarks. This is all on one page. Next page, geography, takes up one full column. The second column is the history of that particular area. That takes up one full page. Then we get into different things that you can do there to tie into a cosmic horror kind of campaign. We have a quote from The Color Out of Space to set the mood. We have more geography, which goes on for another column. And then we get some story seeds, and it's titled under That Way Madness Lies, and gives you a faction with a location and a connection to this particular region, and gives you some random things that you can choose from or apply to, make your campaign come to life, or to inspire you to go in some kind of relevant or completely different direction. These are things like something that conspirators might do. I'm not going to give any spoilers. Or something that cultists might be doing, or something that villagers might be doing, or visiting academics might be doing, and that sort of stuff. So the World Sourcebook starts on page 292, and it finishes many, many places later on page 512. To be specific about the back matter, we've got human forces, a weapons guide, beasts and monsters guide, world currency, nautical terms, seafaring timeline, a bibliography, world maps, faction map, and character sheets. As a final stamp of quality, the book opens its introduction. We have a Lovecraft quote from The Call of Cthulhu, which says, "We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far." I hope you've enjoyed this quick look inside From the Tideless Sea, the new supplement for Raiders of R'lyeh. And what a supplement it is.